Washington, Michigan. Two teams that will be playing in the national championship game. What an exciting matchup it will be for college football. This is Sports Guy Talking that you guys are watching and listening to. I am Dustin Tran, your host, as I am here today to talk about the 2024 college football playoff national championship game, as it is number 2 ranked Washington going up against number 1 ranked Michigan. Washington's run to the national championship game has been impressive, even though it has been far from easy. However, the same can be said for Michigan, as their run to the national championship game has been interesting to say the least. Before I say anything else though, I want to present you guys with the topic question. So here it is. Who will win the national championship game, Washington or Michigan? And I'm going to have to roll with Michigan on this one. I've picked Michigan to win every single game all year long, and that's not going to change now because of the fact that Michigan is currently 14-0. I know Washington is also 14-0, but I've had more belief in Michigan all year long compared to Washington. I know Washington has an elite quarterback in Michael Penix Jr. He's had a phenomenal year, no doubt in my mind. He has low-key turned to left-handed Patrick Mahomes, but when you look at this Washington team, they are banged up right now, and their defense is not that good. They've got Dylan Johnson, who's a really good running back, but he has a lower leg injury. Seems like he's going to play in Monday's game against Michigan. We'll see what happens with that, but he's not going to be 100%. And then, of course, they got Will Nixon, Tybo Rogers, pretty good running backs. Of course, you look at the receiving game, they are littered with weapons all over the place. They got Odunze, they got Polk, they got Bernard, they got McMillan. They are 4 deep at wide receiver. They are a team that is really good in the passing game. There's a reason why Michael Penix has been able to throw for all of those yards. That is because of the fact that Michael Penix is a really good player. He is completing 2/3 of his passes. He's thrown for over 4,600 yards, 35 touchdowns on the year. He has had a great year this year, and of course, most importantly, he has only taken 10 sacks. If your quarterback has only taken 10 sacks this late into the season, that means your offensive line is really good. That means you have done your job as an O-lineman in terms of protecting the quarterback, and I'm not surprised their O-line is good because you look at the rushing game and they get a lot of yards per carry. There's a reason why Dylan Johnson is averaging over 5 yards a carry. If your running back is averaging over 5 yards a carry at the collegiate level, that means their offensive line is doing their job, and that's exactly what Washington's offensive line is all about. But Washington's offensive line hasn't seen a defensive line like Michigan's. I know Texas defensive line was really good, but they're not on the level that Michigan is. Michigan has the best pass rush in the country. They have a defensive line that just gets after it, and they can hit the quarterback like no other team. Michigan is really physical in the front four, and they can create pressure at any given time. That's the thing with Jim Harbaugh led teams. They've got an identity. Their identity is to be as physical as possible. As far as what Michigan fans aren't telling you about Jim Harbaugh, they're not telling you that this could be Jim Harbaugh's final game as a college head coach, because Jim Harbaugh right now is getting NFL offers, and he's been in the NFL before. And not only has Jim Harbaugh been in the NFL before, he has been wildly successful at that level. You look at how he took the San Francisco 49ers to 3 NFC championship games, and it's not like he had an all-time great quarterback on his roster. He had Alex Smith and Colin Kaepernick as his quarterbacks. If you're a head coach and Alex Smith and Colin Kaepernick are your 2 quarterbacks you have to work with, and you take your teams to the championship game year after year, that means you're a really damn good coach, because not a lot of coaches could get those 2 guys to a championship game. Now, granted, the 49ers didn't win a Super Bowl despite going to all those championship games, but damn it, if you have a quarterback like Alex Smith or a quarterback like Colin Kaepernick, the fact that you're even in the conversation to win a championship, it's really impressive. And you look at what Michigan has, they've had a really good roster. Jim Harbaugh has been one hell of a recruiter. He's got JJ McCarthy at the quarterback position, one of the most underrated quarterbacks in the country. I think JJ McCarthy is a lot better than what the stat sheet may indicate. He might not have the flashy numbers of a Jaden Daniels or a Michael Penix Jr. or a Bo Nix, but JJ McCarthy does his job. He knows how to throw it to the open player, and he follows directions within the offense really well. Of course, they've got the 2-headed monster in the running back room, Blake Corum, aka Touchdown Merchant. He scored 25 touchdowns on the year. He even scored the game winner for Michigan last week against Alabama. So obviously, you look at Blake Corum, you have to think, wow, that guy is a superstar running back, and he has had a really good year for Michigan. He's been able to pound that ball and get the ball into the end zone and score points for Michigan. When you have a running back that has a nose for the end zone, that screams efficient football. Of course, they've got the receiving back in Donovan Edwards. He's a really good RB2. On other teams, he would probably be an RB1, but because of how good Blake Corum is, that's why he doesn't get all the reps. But you look at this Michigan team, you're thinking, wow, they are really good in the running back department. Of course, you look at the receiving room as well. They don't really use the wide receivers a lot, but the main receiver that they use is Roman Roman Wilson. Roman Wilson had a really good game against Alabama. I know Tyler Morris also scored a touchdown against Alabama. That ended up being a key play in that game, because if they don't score that touchdown, they probably go on to lose the game. Of course, their tight end game is really good. Colston Loveland, one of the most underrated tight ends in all of college football. The guy finds a way to get open. He might not put up Brock Bowers type of numbers, but Colston Loveland is a pretty good tight end in his own right. And then, of course, they got their backup tight end, AJ Barner, so he's really good in there as well. The Michigan team is stacked at quarterback. They are stacked at running back. They are stacked at tight end. They are stacked in the front four. They got linebackers that are really good. Junior Colston, he's going to get pressure on Michael Penix. And then, of course, you look at their secondary. They're pretty good as well. This is going to be the best secondary Washington has faced all year long. Now, obviously, you look at the injury report. You're thinking about how Dillon Johnson, he's not going to be 100% ready to go, but he's probably going to play tomorrow in the national championship game, mainly because it's the national championship game. And Dillon Johnson is a tough running back. He is a tough player, and he's going to play through the injury. Of course, for Michigan, losing Zach Zinter, that obviously hurts. He's one of their offensive linemen. He injured his leg against Ohio State. He's obviously out for the year. But you think about this roster between Washington and Michigan, and I have to say, Michigan is a lot more physical than Washington. What is the oldest saying in sports? Defense wins championships. Well, that statement is going to come back and age very well for Michigan, because Michigan is all about defense and all about getting after it and setting the tone for the physicality, while Washington is all about scoring points on the board and having fun playing offense while we air it out through the air. And I understand that quarterback is the most important position in all of sports, but when you compare the rest of the roster for Washington compared to Michigan, it's not close. Michigan is obviously better than Washington. It's not even a match. Although Michigan beat Alabama, that wasn't because Alabama played a good game. That was because Michigan made a lot of mistakes. They muffed the punt. They were turning over the football. They were making self-inflicted mistakes. Obviously, Michigan, they're probably not going to do that again in the national championship game. They're probably going to get those mistakes corrected. And when Michigan corrects those mistakes, it ain't going to be that close of a game. I think that although it's going to be a close game throughout, I don't think it's going to be as close as what it actually would be, because I think Michigan is the better team. I think their offensive line is better than Washington's defensive line. I think Michigan's defensive line is going to destroy Washington's offensive line. I think Michael Penix Jr. is actually going to get pressured for once. And obviously, Michael Penix Jr. is a great player, but he hasn't had a lot of pressure all year long. I know teams have tried to blitz Michael Penix Jr., but that's not going to help, because when you blitz Michael Penix Jr., he has a quick release and he's going to find the open man sooner rather than later. Michael Penix Jr. is really good, but he hasn't played against a team that can create pressure in the front four. Pac-12 defenses don't count, because Pac-12 defenses are a joke. And as for Texas, yeah, the front four is really good, but their secondary is really bad, so that kind of cancels it out. This is by far the best defense Washington is going to be going up against Michigan. And obviously, if you're Michigan, you got to get pressure with your front four against Washington and make Michael Penix hold on to the ball, because if Michael Penix has to hold on to the ball, he might make some mistakes. And if he makes some mistakes, Michigan might be able to take advantage and score some points. Obviously, Jim Harbaugh knows a lot about quarterbacks, as he was a former quarterback himself, so he's going to obviously analyze the weaknesses that Michael Penix Jr. has, and he's going to say, okay, we're going to make Michael Penix stay in that pocket, and he has to go through full field level progression reads. And obviously, Michigan fans are loving Jim Harbaugh right now. They didn't always love him, though. 3 years ago, after the COVID year, Michigan was unranked. They had a losing record. A lot of people wanted Jim Harbaugh to be out. Jim Harbaugh, he ends up taking a pay cut instead. He stays at Michigan, and all they've done is win, and then win. Obviously, you look at how Michigan did some drastic changes. They brought in JJ McCarthy. They brought in an entirely new coaching staff, and Michigan has looked a lot better since then. And obviously, Jim Harbaugh played a huge role in the turnaround of Michigan. Obviously, this could be the final game of Jim Harbaugh at Michigan, so it's going to be bittersweet. If Jim Harbaugh wins, this is probably going to be the end of the Jim Harbaugh era at Michigan. If Jim Harbaugh loses, maybe he gets to stay, but obviously, if you're Michigan, you want to win the national championship. You haven't won a national championship since 1997. You have only won one national championship in the last 75 years. So obviously, if you're Michigan, you want to go ahead and win this game, even though this may mark the end of the Jim Harbaugh era. But hey, if Jim Harbaugh leaves, they got a pretty good head coach in waiting as well. They got Sharon Moore, who's been really good as the interim head coach of Michigan back when Jim Harbaugh had to serve some suspensions earlier in the season. So if I'm Michigan, I'm not sweating it if they lose Jim Harbaugh, although I'm certainly hoping that they keep him for the long haul. Jim Harbaugh has done a tremendous job turning around Michigan. As for what the final score will be, I got Washington scoring 17 points. Michigan's going to score 31 points. The score is going to be 31-17. I think Michigan, they're going to score a touchdown in order to pull away late. That's how they're going to win by 14. But I think that it's going to be a 7-point game throughout the game. But I think Michigan, they're just going to let their defensive line take over the Washington offensive line. And I think Michael Penix Jr. is going to get pressured a lot throughout the game, while Michigan is going to wear down Washington's defensive line by running the football through Blake Corum. And when they have to throw the ball, JJ McCarthy is going to make plays happen in the passing game. So that is why Michigan will win the national championship game, as they will beat Washington Washington by the score of 31-17. Remember, go ahead and subscribe to Sports Guy Talking, like the video, and please comment down below. If you guys do that, I may shout you guys out in my Instagram story every Monday. That'll be for the @Dustin Instagram account. Make sure to follow me on Instagram @Dustin Tran and that Sports Guy Talking. Also, go follow me on Twitter @Dustin Tran. Again, go ahead and do those things that I just told you guys to go do. Hopefully, you guys enjoyed the content that was just produced. Peace out. I hope you enjoyed that video. Want more Sports Guy Talking, the home of great sports content? Make sure you click that subscribe button to get the latest from Sports Guy Talking. Go ahead and like the video, comment down below, check the description box on the video in order to follow my Instagram and Twitter. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from the YouTube channel, Sports Guy Talking.